There we go. Let's unmute the mic. Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It's NFL Week 11, and this is going to be, think of Chris Berman in the fastest 3 minutes. You see that on Monday Night Football during halftime. That's what this is going to be. We're going to rip through the entire card, rapid fire opinions on every game on the NFL board for Week 11. Let's dive right into it, and we'll begin with the Green Bay Packers taking on the New York Giants. Packers 7-point road favorites, 41.5 the total. Giants in the over, my leans. I don't like the weather forecast, though. Heavy wind is in the forecast for a couple of places for these early Sunday afternoon games, and one of the places expected to have issues with wind is New York this afternoon for this Packers and Giants game. So be aware of that. 20-mile-per-hour winds in the forecast, so that could really negate the passing game and could force both of these offenses to go a lot more to their run game, slow the game down a little bit. So what I would say is, initially I like, and the Giants coming off the coaching change. Mike Kafka, of course, takes over as the interim coach after Brian Daboll was fired. I was thinking we might get a little bit of you usually get that one game coach bump. Maybe we see that from the New York Giants here, but they're just so banged up. That's the problem. They got some injuries on offense. They've definitely got a few on defense that are concerning going into this game. So maybe I'm going to bet it small, but I know early in the week I was really interested in the Giants plus 7.5. Not to mention I don't trust the Packers right now laying points. I don't, with what we've seen from them in recent weeks. But the weather and the fact the Giants have some injuries have got me pumping the brakes on that game. Maybe I don't bet it at all. If anything, small bets on the Giants plus the points and the over, but like I said, not enamored with that game, especially based on the way the weather forecast is going to be. Again, wind is the one thing that will always concern me about an over. I can handle rain. I can handle snow. I can say, you know what? I still like the over, even though there could be some rain and some snow. Wind is a different story. That's truly when the scoring could be impacted by the weather when wind is in play, and we do have that for the Packers and the Giants. We also have that for Tampa Bay and Buffalo. This is another game I thought I'd be on the over, but again, we got heavy wind in the Northeast, and Buffalo, same thing, 21-mile-per-hour winds, and actually a greater chance of rain here as well. Although I don't think we're going to get too much rain there. Buffalo, 6.5 point home favorites, 46.5 the total. Of course, Tampa Bay is not going to have Bucky Irving. Not that Rachaad White's not capable, but certainly their best running back unavailable. This could be a game where whoever runs the football ends up winning the game, and whoever does a better job stopping the run ends up winning the game. I like the spot for Buffalo. I don't love the price. I mean, you have to lay 6.5, and you are talking about a very ultra competitive quarterback on the other side in Baker Mayfield, but this is a Bucs team that's got some injuries. This is a Bucs team that did not play well last week, in my opinion, against the Patriots. And this is a circle the wagon spot for the Bills. They're coming off an absolute no-show, a debacle against Miami, following the big win against Kansas City. Now they're back home. Remember, they were good enough to beat Kansas City here at home. So I feel it's a Bills spot. It's definitely a Bills spot. I just wish it was a little cheaper than 6.5, but Bills are past for me. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. We've got Pittsburgh 5.5 point home favorites, 48.5 the total. Pittsburgh for me here a little bit. You've got one thing you can do too, Buffalo, with that double result. I did bet a little Buffalo double result at plus 120. Same thing here with Cincy Pittsburgh. I'd look at Pittsburgh double result, which is Pittsburgh to lead at halftime and win the game. I like that. I've been using that bet a lot more lately. It makes a lot of sense. And all they have to do is lead at half and win the game. And you don't have to worry about winning by any sort of margin. So I really like the double result betting option for, these moderate favorites. I think Pittsburgh does bounce back. I know Cincinnati offensively with Joe Flacco has been moving the ball, but the defense is still absolutely hideous. You would think this is where Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers can bounce back after a bit of a tough performance. And Pittsburgh's been kind of good, bad lately, right? They had the bad second half against Green Bay on Sunday Night Football, but they bounced back. They beat Indianapolis, looked very impressive in doing so in that game. And then, of course, they fall to the Chargers Sunday Night Football last week. Now it feels like it's their Tomlin's been very predictable over the years. Off a win, he's not the best coach to bet on or team to bet on, Pittsburgh. But when he's off a loss, that's usually when you get Pittsburgh playing a little bit better. They've certainly owned the Cincinnati Bengals. We have to keep that in mind. And as good as the Bengals offense has been, the O-line still has some issues. And going up against Watt, Highsmith, that front, which can get pressure, this could be a tough day for Flacco. He still doesn't have much mobility. I worry that the Steelers' front seven maybe gets after him a bit. And then I think, like I said, the Bengals' defense is so bad, anybody can move the football on them. Look at what the Jets did against them a few weeks ago. So I think it's a Steelers spot. Steelers double result. I prefer a little bit more than laying the 5.5. Houston, Tennessee. Houston, 5.5-point road favorites, 37.5 the total. I'm telling you, this is a great spot for Tennessee if you can trust them. Now, they're only getting 5.5, but they're off a bye week. Houston's playing Davis Mills at quarterback, obviously with C.J. Stroud injured. Do you trust Houston to win by margin on the road? So I understand people liking Tennessee. I did grab a small Tennessee bet +6. I'm going to make a case for the over, though, in this game. Total is at 37.5. Here's why. Number one is the number. It's just very low, in my opinion. You can almost get over 37 by accident. Number two is this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL, especially the last 3 to 4 weeks. I'm talking about Tennessee. They have been brutal on the defensive side of the football. Haven't been able to stop the pass, haven't been able to stop the run. I know we're talking Davis Mills at quarterback on the other side for Houston, but he got the offense rolling late in that comeback win against Jacksonville. He played a really good game. He was finding his receivers. He was accurate with the football. That has to be a confidence builder for Davis Mills. And now against, a much weaker defense here in this game, I think the Texans can have a surprisingly good offensive showing today just because of how bad the Tennessee defense is. Houston's defense is still pretty good, but they did struggle at times with Jacksonville. Tennessee's offense is not very good. Cam Ward's had a rough year. Their offensive line has had problems. They aren't great in the skill position talent group, but they have improved in small steps, if you will, the last few weeks. They've gone from 10 points to 13 points to 14 points to 20 points that they scored in their last game before the bye week against the Chargers. So slowly but surely incremental improvement from Tennessee. And I'll say this, they reached 20 points in their last game against the Chargers. If they get to 20 here, this game's going over the total because to me, Houston's got every chance to get to at least 20 in this game. So I think 37's too low. 3-0 to the over for Tennessee in their last 3 games. I'm going to take advantage of this number being so low and think we could still get enough points to get this game over the total. Think about it. 21-17 is a winner for the over here. I think it can happen. So I'm going to go with over 37, Houston and Tennessee. Chicago, Minnesota. Minnesota, 2.5-point home favorites, 48 the total. Here's the thing. Chicago's playing well. Revenge spot because they lost to Minnesota at Soldier Field on that Monday night game back in week 1. But it's a bounce back spot for Minnesota at home off a home loss to Baltimore. Chicago's strength of schedule, even though it's been a nice run for Ben Johnson's team, 6-1 in their last 7 games. The wins were Dallas, Las Vegas, Washington, New Orleans, Bengals, Giants. That's not a great group of wins. That's not a great group of competition. That's Sisters of the Poor. We still kind of have to see what Chicago can do against a better team. Their losses were to Baltimore, Detroit, and Minnesota. So there you go. When they face good or better teams, they've lost. I don't know how good Minnesota is. They're 4-5. They've had a disappointing year, but they're better than a lot of these teams the Bears have won. It feels to me like a Minnesota spot. So I lean Vikings here, 2.5. I like this over. I do. Minnesota's been an over machine, 6-1 to the over in their last 7 games. And even last week, the game barely stayed under. I think they'll move the football. I think J.J. McCarthy will have a bounce-back performance. I think he'll look a lot more like he did against Detroit when they beat the Lions 2 weeks ago, 27-24. Remember, Chicago doesn't have much quarterback pressure. They don't get much pressure on quarterbacks. Their sack rate is bad. They just don't generate a great pass rush. So I think Minnesota. And J.J. McCarthy should have time to find his weapons down the field. But I think Chicago can move the football, too. I remain unimpressed with Minnesota's defense. Like they gave up 20 to Dart and They gave up. No, not Dart. That was Chicago facing the Giants. They gave up 27 to Baltimore last week, 24 to Detroit, 37 to Herbert and the Chargers, 28 to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. They have not played great defense here, this Vikings team. So I think Chicago can have some success offensively. No weather issues inside in Minnesota. So I like the over here with the Bears and the Vikings over 47.5. Carolina, Atlanta. We've got Atlanta 3.5, 4-point home favorites, 41.5 the total. I mean, I lean Atlanta. They got shut out by Carolina, 30-0 in Carolina, divisional revenge spot. But I don't trust the Falcons enough to want to lay more than a field goal with them. I don't want Carolina here. But there's something off with Atlanta. Their defense has kind of fallen back. It seems like Michael Penix Jr. has great moments and then other moments where he struggles. So I just don't love where the Falcons are at right now. I just don't. And it really started with that no-show and that blowout loss at home to Miami. That's really when I started to get concerned about this team. And now they've lost 4 in a row. Atlanta spot for sure, but I just don't want to lay more than a field goal. At less than 3, maybe. At 3.5, 4, no thank you. So lean Falcons, but just a lean. All right, Chargers, Jaguars. Chargers 3-point road favorites, 43 the total. I made a case for Jacksonville here. +3 home underdogs. Remember, they beat Kansas City on a Monday night here at home earlier this season. They're coming off that horrendous collapse against Houston. And I mean horrendous. When you're up almost 20 points in the fourth quarter, you're supposed to win that damn game. And Jacksonville blowing that game was just absolutely abysmal. But if anything, it should have them really focused here from start to finish against the Chargers. I know the Chargers have won 3 in a row, including last Sunday night against Pittsburgh. But that offensive line is still in shambles. Multiple linemen out. The one thing Jacksonville does have is a semblance of pass rush with the other Josh Allen, as I like to say, with Trayvon Walker. I worry a little bit about how that offensive line for Herbert holds up. Now, Herbert's done a phenomenal job getting the ball out quickly. That is what has preserved him here in these few games with the offensive line issues. But, you're going on the road for an early start. Jacksonville, look, they've lost 3 of 4, but 2 of those 3 losses before the collapse last week to Houston were the Rams and the Seahawks, who have had great seasons. There's no shame in that. And the Seattle spot was a bad spot coming off Monday Night Football against Kansas City. The Rams, look, Rams are excellent. So even though it was a bad day for Jacksonville over in that game was over in Europe, I think. Yes, 35-7. You forgive them for that. I think there's a winnable game for Jacksonville. And we've seen the Chargers on the road, too. Let's not forget. At Tennessee, they didn't cover. At Miami, they were 4-point road favorites. They only won by 2. Almost lost the game. And then at the Giants, they lost outright as favorites. So their track record as road favorites this year, the Chargers, hasn't been great. I've got them now 0-3 against the spread in true road environments, or 1-3 against the spread, I should say, in true road environments this year, true road games. This season. So, like I said, Jacksonville, I think, is worth a look. Now that it's hit 3, maybe not at the opener when the Chargers were 1-point road favorites, but now at 3, I've got interest in Jacksonville here as a home underdog. Seattle and the LA Rams, man, battle for first in the NFC West. This should be good. Rams 3.5-point road favorites, 48.5 the total. So I'm going to be willing to give the Seahawks a chance to show me that they're legit. Chance to show me that Sam Darnold can step up, play well in a big game against a great team, because that's where the jury is still out. I still have to see it. So by default, I could only look at the Rams here laying the 3, but Seattle's damn good. The question is going to be, can they translate that to facing a good opponent? Because the wins have been against Pittsburgh, 2 against Arizona, New Orleans, Jacksonville, Houston, Washington. Can they translate this strong team that we've seen on both sides of the football, the Seahawks, into going on the road and beating one of the best teams in the NFC? They have a chance to do it. That defense has been terrific. And they might get after Matthew Stafford a little bit. But the Rams are rolling. We know the Rams can win these kind of games. They've done it in the past. We don't know that about Sam Darnold. We don't know that about Seattle. So it's Rams or pass. But Seattle, the eye test, I'm so impressed with Seattle. And for that reason, that's why I'm not betting the Rams here. I'm giving the Seahawks a chance to show they can step up, win a big game, because everything tells me they're ready to do so. But again, you kind of have to see it with this team, especially with Sam Darnold, especially with him for as great as, and he's been great. Like, let's not kid ourselves. He's had a great season for the Seahawks so far. But again, against this kind of opponent, let's see if he can get it done. It's a great game to watch. I don't have much. This is one of those games where this is what I'm going to be doing. Whoever scores the first touchdown of the game and takes the lead, I might bet the other side after that. I think it's going to be a game of momentum swings back and forth. I think it'll be competitive and close. That's kind of going to be my approach here when it comes to Seahawks and Rams. I kind of lean over, but again, it's a divisional game. It's a big game, and if the Seattle defense plays as well as they have in recent weeks, this game might stay under. And we know the Rams run the football a lot, burn a lot of clock, so that's why the total, I'm kind of back and forth on it. San Francisco, Arizona. San Francisco 3.5-point road favorites, 48.5 the total in this game. I think it's a good spot for the Niners. Niners off that loss to the Rams, but again, the Rams are rolling. The Niners are injury depleted and decimated, and they still do have a lot of injuries. But on offense, it's looking a lot better. A lot of their skill position guys are back. Brock Purdy returns at quarterback for this game. And I think after the loss last week, and Shanahan and the Niners this year have been pretty good off a loss. If you look at what they've done, they've usually responded after a setback in the previous game. I'm looking at their track record. They lose to Jacksonville. They beat the Rams, shocked the Rams on that Thursday night. They lose to Tampa. They beat Atlanta. They lose to Houston. They beat the Giants after that. Last week, they lose to the Rams in the rematch. I think they bounce back here. And Arizona, to me, look, Jacoby Brissett, credit to him. Since he came in the Indianapolis game after Kyler Murray got benched, he had been solid. He gave them a chance against the Colts, gave them a chance against the Packers, beat the Dallas Cowboys. But at the end of the day, he's a journeyman veteran quarterback who's been around the block. And he finally looked like it last week against Seattle. They made life miserable for him. And now you wonder, after that loss, this team's 3-6. Do they start to slide again? It's very possible. I think it's a good bounce back spot for the Niners. I got it at -3. I still like the Niners at 3.5. This one, I like the over too. I think we'll see points. It's worth noting the last two times in Arizona, we've seen 74 and 71 points between these two teams combined. Arizona can still move the football a bit, and the San Francisco defense is still very banged up. Both teams have been giving up 24-plus in the majority of their recent games, so I like this over here, 48 in the Niners and Cardinals as well. Baltimore, Cleveland. I'm going to make a case for Cleveland. Cleveland plus 7.5 against Baltimore. The total there, 38. Another game with wind. So whoever's going to run the football and stop the run is probably going to have a better opportunity here in this game. And you would think that would be Derrick Henry. But if you actually look at Cleveland, for some reason against this Baltimore team, don't be fooled by the game earlier this year. Baltimore won 41-17, but it was not because they could run the football. There was a bunch of crazy plays. I know there was a fumble recovery touchdown for Baltimore in that game. Most of it was Jackson through the air. Derrick Henry, on 11 attempts running the football, had 23 rushing yards in that game. They shut him down, Cleveland. So don't assume that Derrick Henry is going to go off today. Cleveland defended him extremely well in that first meeting earlier this year. And we know Cleveland's run game is pretty capable with Quinshon Judkins, who's been getting better and better each week to give support to Dillon Gabriel. And we've seen Cleveland in this bigger home underdog role step up, not to mention their defense, which struggles on the road, always seems to play a lot better here in Cleveland. And you look at the home games this year, 1-point loss to Cincy. They win outright as dogs against Green Bay. 4-point loss at home to Minnesota, but very competitive. They beat Miami, obviously, their last home game. So they haven't been blown out once this year at home. So, and Baltimore still in this price range with John Harbaugh can be a little bit flighty. Not easy to trust. I think Cleveland could stay within a score there. So I like Cleveland plus 7.5 against Baltimore. Kansas City, Denver, big AFC West battle. Kansas City, 4.5-point road favorites, 45 the total. So I'm on the Chiefs here at bet. Like, it's Andy Reid off a bye, and the bye is following that loss in Buffalo for the Chiefs. So I expect Kansas City to be ready to go here, play a good game, start to finish, be well prepared. Patrick Mahomes to do well. And remember, Patrick Surtain is out for the Broncos in that secondary still. One of the better corners in the league. And now this Kansas City team, they got Hollywood Brown, and who they've had Hollywood Brown all year, but they've got Xavier Worthy back from injury now. Rashee Rice returned from suspension weeks ago. This is now loaded for bear receiving core for Patrick Mahomes. So I think Kansas City can move the football here a little in this game against even a very good Denver defense. I think missing Surtain, it'll show up. But the issue for Denver is their offense. This is now multiple games where the offense has not looked sharp, has not looked crisp, and it really hasn't looked crisp early in games. You know, this is a team that last week against Las Vegas, they only score 10 points. They don't do anything in the first half of that game. They don't do much of anything in the first half against Houston 2 weeks ago, even though they won on the road 18-15. The Dallas game's the one game they had a good start offensively. And then you go back further than that, the Jets game couldn't get the offense going. The Philly game, it took a while to get going. And then the Giants game, no points until the fourth quarter when they scored 33 in that epic comeback. So there's been a real problem starting fast for Denver. And I think that could show here. I think now at the current number, with the full game being 4.5, I think you take Kansas City minus 2.5 first half. I think that's a good look. We know Denver struggles out of the gate, especially on offense. We know Kansas City off a bye, and the loss to the Buffalo Bills before the bye should ensure that they're ready to go to get off to a good start. So I think the even better bet in this game now is the Chiefs minus 2.5, minus 115 in the first half. Or you take Kansas City double result, which is, again, lead at halftime and win the game. But certainly a great spot for the Chiefs. And this could be the game where the Denver offensive flaws finally pay the price for their offensive shortcomings. All right, Sunday Night Football, Detroit, Philadelphia. Man, this should be a great game. Philadelphia, 2.5-point home favorites, 46 the total. I was all set to bet the over here. I still like it a little bit, but I'm seeing more and more that wind is whipping up more than I was hoping here in Philadelphia Sunday night. So I'm a little concerned about that, but I do think we could see points. Philadelphia's defense was great last week against Green Bay, but there's some real issues with the Packers offense. Look, Dan Campbell, first opportunity to take over play calling, man, it was great. Now it was against Washington's defense, but still, he got everybody involved. The run game, the pass game, spread the ball around. I was very impressed with Dan Campbell's first attempt at calling plays last week against the Commanders. And you look at Philadelphia, here's the thing with them. The Green Bay win was ugly last week, and then they beat the Giants, who were off the collapse to Denver, and they beat, who else did they beat? They beat the Minnesota Vikings with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Those were their wins. They barely beat Tampa, and they needed a special team score to win that. They had no business beating the Rams. The Rams just, kind of coughed that one up. They won against Kansas City by 3, and they beat Dallas by 4. So Philadelphia has found ways to win. Credit to them. I think Detroit can go in there and win. Don't forget, Detroit went into Baltimore on a primetime game earlier this year and beat the Ravens. I like them at +3. I think it could be a field goal game either way between these two teams, but I'm going to take Detroit +3. I still like the over a little bit, but again, check the forecast before kickoff because it looks like the wind is starting to increase a little bit for that game tonight between the Lions and Eagles. All right, and we wrap it up with Monday Night Football. Poor Joe and Troy. They're not getting the best game here. That is for damn sure. Dallas, Las Vegas. Cowboys 3-point road favorites, 50 the total. It'll be interesting to see if Quinnen Williams is in the lineup for Dallas. They got him, of course, at the trade deadline from the Jets. If he is playing, suddenly that makes the run defense a little bit better and makes the defense overall better with him on the field. And boy, do they need it. We know the Cowboys defense has been awful this season. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm kind of interested in Dallas here. -3. Just a field goal favorite on the road. Las Vegas has no home field edge. There'll be a ton of Cowboy fans there, I'm sure of it. And when you think about it, even Dallas's defense might be able to play okay here because Las Vegas, Geno Smith is struggling. They're lacking weapons. The offensive line is absolutely atrocious for the Las Vegas Raiders. This actually could be an opportunity for Dallas to have some success on both sides of the ball. We know Dak Prescott and the offense have been able to move the football. It's the defense that struggled, but I think they finally get a matchup where the defense faces an offense with just as much questions as the Cowboys have on defense, if not more. So I am a little bit interested. Again, it's the Cowboys, and I don't love backing them, especially as favorites, but -3, I can't make a case for Las Vegas. That's how bad things have been for them. So I lean a little bit to Dallas here, -3. I mean, if Las Vegas is any kind of an inept team, they would have beat Denver last week because Denver was horrible. They put that game on a silver platter for Las Vegas, and Las Vegas didn't take it. So I lean Dallas there, -3 on Monday Night Football. All right, let's wrap it up. Best bet for NFL Week 11. Let's see what we'll do for best bet. Let's go to that Kansas City-Denver game. Let's go with Kansas City -2.5 in the first half. So that's Kansas City basically to lead by a field goal or more at halftime. Denver has been a slow starter, especially Denver's offense. Kansas City off a bye week. Andy Reid's sparkling track record off a bye week. I think it all shows up here, and we see the Chiefs get off to a good start in the opening 30 minutes of this game and take a lead into halftime with them, lead up by at least a field goal. So let's go with the Kansas City Chiefs -2.5, -115 in the first half against Denver for my best bet for NFL Week 11 on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy NFL Week 11 and good luck, and we'll see you again next week for another NFL edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.